I'd like to welcome you to Screendragon's webinar on the topic, Have You Outgrown Basecamp? So thanks for tuning in. I think it's going to be a very insightful session, hopefully for you. And before we get straight into it, I'll call out a few housekeeping matters just to give you a bit of orientation on the session. So we're aiming to have an interactive session we expect between 20 to 30 minutes. And we're going to leave about 10 to 15 minutes for a Q&A session at the end. So if you haven't used GoToWebinar before, you can submit your questions in the widget. So there is a submit your question in the thing. Just look for it at the bottom of the widget on your screen, and I'll be tracking it there, and I'll be able to respond to it, or actually I'm going to get my colleague presenter to respond to it. So let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Fergus Ash, and I'm the Director of Client Solutions at Screendragon, and I've been working in the marketing industry for over 20 years now. First number of years, 10 years as an account manager, account director, client service director in agencies. And over the last 10 plus years, actually I've become a builder of project management and workflow software in Screendragon. So I'm one of the early guys in. We've built up a company that's dedicated to the needs of marketing teams at agencies and at enterprises as well. So a little bit about Screendragon. As you can imagine, we are a provider of project management workflow software solutions, and we provide them on the cloud. We work with many of the world's most innovative brands and agencies, and actually, interestingly, in many cases, these same organizations are also users of Basecamp, and I think that's actually testament to the good things Basecamp can bring to the party, especially in the early days of people getting used to implementing project management in an organization. However, today's topic will focus on where Basecamp is actually not fit for purpose, because it isn't ideal in all circumstances. And I think even the owners of the company, 37 Signals, as the mother company of Basecamp, they're probably the first to admit that they deliberately don't do some things. In fact, I think they've written a book about not, let's say, agreeing to every request coming from its community because they don't want to go down certain paths. So I've asked a colleague of mine to join me because he's actually got a lot more first-hand experience of using Basecamp in various roles and organizations, and he's going to talk to us about Basecamp and where it's the right fit and where it has limitations to solve some business use cases. He's going to do this with the support of a deck, as you can see now, but we're also going to give you an interactive demo as well of Screendragon software, and where we go further than Basecamp in certain areas, and how that can hopefully solve some business challenges that you may now have with Basecamp or other project management software. So my colleague's name is Dara, and Dara, I'm going to hand over to you now because you've prepared, let's say, the deck for today. And good luck talking to everybody and sharing with them your experience. I think you've been a user of Basecamp for the last, what, 6 years or so? Something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Thanks very much, Fergus, for the introduction, and hello, everybody. So before we get into the real subject matter, I just wanted to take another few moments just to give you some more background information, but this time on sort of my role at Screendragon, and to put some more context around our dealings with Basecamp. So as a business analyst here at Screendragon, I'm heavily involved in the early stages of implementations of the Screendragon platform, working closely with clients to firstly understand and define their processes, and then to identify how we can best configure the Screendragon solution to deliver for those needs. And part of this process involves analyzing their current ways of working and also the systems they currently use. And this is where we encounter Basecamp quite a bit. And it's what I think gives us the insights to talk about the experiences of teams who do outgrow Basecamp. But as Fergus alluded to a second ago, this isn't where I personally first came across Basecamp. And before I get into that history, I feel it's important to say that this isn't a Basecamp bashing session. In fact, Basecamp will always be my first love, at least when it comes to project management software. But that relationship ran its course and I since moved on, so I'd like to think of this as more of a self-help tutorial to assist others in identifying the cracks in their Basecamp relationship and to help them to spot the signs. The signs that are the cue to knowing, when it's time to move on. So the history here goes all the way back to 2011 when I started work as a project manager in a creative agency in Vancouver in Canada, and for one reason or other I inherited a myriad of projects from 2 different project managers and had a whole load of new projects that were kicking off, so I was really being thrown in the deep end. And it was really sink or swim time, and it was Basecamp that helped me keep my head above water for those first few weeks and getting on top of everything. And how was that? Well, to continue the love story analogy, we understood each other straight away. So within an hour of getting my login details, I knew how it worked. You had projects, and within each project, you had your to-dos, files, and discussions. It was so simple, yet so effective. And within a week of being in the system, it was like we'd known each other forever. So what is it about Basecamp that we love? Well, the answer is that 37 Signals, the people behind Basecamp, have done a great job of keeping it really simple and to the point. And this means it's really easy to use. There's no steep learning curve, whether you're new to a team or whether you're a client who's after getting login details for the first time. You're up and running in no time at all. And it acts as that single place for everything to do with a project. It brings everybody together into a single place. All of your files are in the one place, so everybody has visibility on everything that's going on that relates to a project. And it makes tasking really, really simple. So in the real world, every project doesn't need a Microsoft Project Gantt chart. A simple tick list will suffice, and I think Basecamp does a great job at doing that. And best of all, the threaded discussions mean that both the team and the client can reply to discussions from their inbox, and it all gets stored in one place. And this is huge because Basecamp basically has accepted people for the way they're used to working, and rather than asking them to change, it just makes it easier within the system. So I can hear you saying, yes, that all sounds about right, Basecamp is great, so what changed? Well, with any relationship, we all make sacrifices and accept the shortcomings of the other party, but there are just some cracks that can't be papered over. And from our experience as sort of, what would I call ourselves, process therapists, these are 4 of the biggies that we've come across. So firstly, not all projects are born equal. Some are straightforward with a short timeline, and this is where Basecamp excels. But other projects have a lot more moving parts with complicated timelines, big teams, lots of different deliverables, and Basecamp can very quickly seem wholly inadequate at handling this. So a one-size-fits-all, approach to what a project is just doesn't work. And as some of those inadequacies become apparent, people start, relying on other systems to do the things that Basecamp just can't do, or that Basecamp wasn't designed to do, whether this be templatizing briefs or annotating documents, digital approvals, resource management, tracking time, the list goes on. And the old reliable Microsoft Excel, a single status Excel is usually created to help track the, more intricate details of projects, and then they inevitably begin to take on a life of their own as more columns, formulas, and tabs are added until you're back managing versions and sharing them again around via email. And the culmination of all of the above is that people adapt. And without realizing it, they've created a process, a very unique way of working, and we'll be the first to say process is great, but when it's developed in this way, it's often not fit for purpose. And worse still, it can often take on the form of a set of unwritten rules that are easy to follow as long as you know them. And with my process therapist hat on again, this adapting is really a form of denial. And people are often unable to take a step back to see that as they've grown as a business and as their processes have developed and evolved, so too has what they actually require of a project management system. And they fail to see that, you know, they have indeed outgrown the tool that has served them so well in the past. So from our experience, denial can look like a few different things. So what we've done here is we've set up our own little Basecamp account, and using those experience kind of recreated some of the classics, I suppose you could call them. So the first one here is that often, you know, a single project can become overwhelmed by the amount of work going on in it. And teams seem to become oblivious to how disorganized their simple discussions, files, and tasks become once they're all lumped in together on the same level. So in this example here, you can see, you know, there's no breakdown of whether it's the discussions by project phase, by timeline, by my role or permissions within it. Everybody just has the exact same view of a project, and that works for very simple projects. But again, you know, if a project is a bit more complicated, then this can get very, very busy, very, very fast. And, you know, kind of behind all this, where your project actually comes from, the project briefing process, yes, we love simplicity, but this briefing process is just too basic. You know, you put in your title, you put in your description, you assign a team, but sometimes you need more than that when kicking off a project. And what we often see teams doing is, you know, they have to upload a Word doc or a PDF afterwards with all of the actual real detail about their projects. But my favorite, and what we see quite a few people doing actually, is they actually use the description here to pack it full of with as much information as they can about a project. So this is a perfect example. You can see here on the screen, they're after using the description to put in key dates about the project, URLs, details of who the key, or, you know, what the key roles are on that project. And even though all the information is here in one place, you can't really search on this, you can't report on it, sort by it, filter by it, or also even track if, you know, changes have been made to it. And kind of what relates to this as well is, you know, once you have your projects in the system, there's no real way to kind of keep them organized and manage them at a portfolio level. So what you're looking at the moment is that, you know, familiar list view you have of when you're looking at your projects, but to be honest, it just looks like a giant phone book in many sense. And what we've seen clients do is try and use the title here to put in key information about each of their projects. So you can see there's dates again being added into the titles here, client names, or even down here you can see it talks about a project being on hold because, you know, you want to give an indication of what the status of that particular project is. And the other portfolio views, they don't deliver much by the way of kind of organizing information either. So this one here, you know, just shows again the names of all the different projects, who the key players are, and some very, very basic information. But I think what this does reiterate is the fact that the Basecamp was never designed to manage a huge amount of projects like this. It's more designed for the kind of, you know, simple, rapid-fire projects for smaller teams. And another part of that is that the actual templates then that are used for those projects are very, very simple. And even though they have, you know, Basecamp does templating, it has been improved in recent years, but it just isn't smart enough. And what we find is that often when somebody is creating a project, they mightn't exactly know which template they need to use, or even what are the team members they need to pull in on it. And what we're finding more and more is that the project creation process almost needs to be dynamic, with the system looking at the information that's been inputted when the project is being created, and then the system automatically pulling in the resources and tools that are needed for that type of project. And one of the workarounds we've seen here is rather than teams creating loads of individual templates. They just create a single template that I like to call the kitchen sink template, where they just add in every task that's could possibly be needed, every team member, every type of discussion. They use it for every project, and then they delete out what isn't needed. So it's just not a very efficient way of working. And finally, approvals in the system. So key to working with any client or any team is getting that all-important sign-off, so things can move on and progress within a project. And these are often stored within a discussion tab, and having to dig your way through reams of discussions to find that thread that contains that all-important I do can be a real headache. It's not very official, and there needs to be a more structured and organized approach to handling approvals. So what is the alternative? Well, Screendragon is one for a start, and I suppose the big difference between something like Screendragon and Basecamp is that Screendragon packs more of a punch under the hood. And what I mean by this is that it can be configured to align with the way you work a lot more closely. And even if you're not ready to jump in the deep end, it can grow with you and evolve as your processes inevitably do, and as new ones get established. And the good news is you can still evolve the things you do love about Basecamp. So as Fergus said, as well as actually showing you from our experience what we've seen not quite right about Basecamp, we also want to show you how it could look in another system. So let me just move along here. So what you're looking at the moment is an example of a project portfolio view within the Screendragon system. So what I'm seeing here is a list of all of the different projects I have access to within the system, but more importantly, key information about each is being displayed. So it's very organized, it's very visual, and on the right here, I'm getting a top-level sort of view of where we are within that particular project. So these are the key milestones within each of these projects, and then it's showing me which ones are complete and which ones are active. So it's more of an Excel-like view, and it's giving us a lot more information about what's actually going on within that particular project. And this view is just another way of looking at the same information, except this time we're looking at an actual percentage progress. So you can see, there's different filter buttons on the screen here where you can organize and sort to really find the projects that you're looking for. And this is dynamic. So if an artwork due date was important to you, who the project lead was, or any other key piece of information about a project that you wanted to see at this top level, you can customize this view to pull that information into it. And when you're adding a project to the system, there's a much more structured approach to that, with you filling out what we call a project initiation form. So you create these forms specific to each of the different types of projects you commonly run, and what you're doing here is you're collecting all the information that the team will need to actually do that project. So there's no need to keep status Excels anymore, as this is where all that key information lives. And it's the information that's put in here that actually powers the portfolio views you saw a second ago, and also enables to run quite sophisticated reports to get a breakdown of things across. I want to see all of the project types, TV types that we're doing for this particular client that are being delivered during the month of August. So these forms are very, very flexible in how you can set them up to capture, again, the information that's important for each one of your projects. And as well as the actual project initiation process being very structured, so is the experience once you have a project within the system. So in the top image here, what you're seeing is within a project that visual of the key milestones. So anybody who opens up that project can see, are we at the beginning of this process, or are we a bit further along? When is this key milestone due to be complete? And within each project, you've all of your different module areas, but this one you're looking at here is your tasks area. So within a project, you have your main stage gates, but specific to each stage gate then, you've a set of tasks that are going to be completed within that stage gate, like you're seeing here, but also you've the set of files that are relating to that particular stage of the project. So you can see here we're in the program development stage, and these are the pieces of artwork and files that are being worked on by the team now at that particular stage of the process. And what powers this this organization and this structure are the templates that you create. So this is one of the screens from our template builder, one of the admin tools within them, but it just shows you that it's not a case of one size fits all. You can set up, this is a fast track project template with maybe very, very few modules, because you say, well, for this type of project, this is more Basecamp like. I just need a simple file section, I need a simple set of to-dos, and I want to have my channels, so my discussions, so the team can work on the project, and then that could be one type of template you have. But then for other projects where there's a lot more going on, and this is after flicking into a different view of that template builder, you might say, I want to put in different stage gates so the team can track their progress through and see when are those big milestones being completed. And there's a lot of other more advanced features going on around here. So what you might want to say is that, well, one of those key milestones on a project is complete, I want the whole project team to automatically be notified that we've hit this milestone, we're now moving on, so that whether things step up a gear or whether other tasks are going to be kicked off now, that whole process can be automated. And we also talked about some of the tools that Basecamp, or some of the features that just Basecamp doesn't have, such as a more structured approach to approvals. So this is what we call an audit trail on a file that has been sent for approval in the system. So you take a file and you say, yes, I need to send this and get official sign-off from whether it be a client, whether it be someone more senior on the team, and then anybody at any stage can come in and track its progress through the approval process you define. So you can see here it's passing through different people. PM is reviewing it, somebody's marked it as on hold for some reason, and then somebody's actually going to say, yeah, I'm happy with this project, I'm going to actually activate it. This is actually the approval process for a project that's going through the system. And one of those other big kind of modules that we often hear people, our clients say, that is missing from Basecamp is the ability to effectively track what people are actually working on beyond assigning tasks to them. So this is just some visuals from the resource planner from within the Screendragon system. And what you're looking at here on this sort of calendar view at the back is how you can book in people to work on particular projects for periods of time, and then the different color coding going on here is corresponding to that person's level of utilization. So you can spot whether they have capacity to take on new work, or as you can see, it's red here, meaning you have a conflict, that maybe that person or that team has too much work on, so you might need to split that out among a few different people. And then also from, let's say, a traffic manager or resource manager's point of view, if you are trying to plan in new projects that are coming in the next few months, and you need to see, well, do we have the resources to take on those particular projects, or how will they impact on the other projects we have on the go at the moment? Because you're collecting, all of that resourcing information, we can analyze it and display it in different ways, so you can actually look at your capacity across different disciplines. So for example, here you can see, we have a team of 8 project managers. What does their workload look like for the next 4 or 5 weeks? So we can make a decision as to whether we can take on those new projects, or whether we do need to hire new project managers or get more freelancers involved. So that's the last slide we have there. So what I'm going to do now is actually I just want to open up the site I was just showing you there. But while I'm doing that, Fergus, is there anything you'd like to add, or any questions that have come in so far that you feel would be useful to look at right now?
No, not yet, Darren. I think you're in a good flow. I think it'll be very beneficial, I think, for everybody attending to see it in motion rather than just slides. So I think the interactive demo will certainly help hopefully differentiate where Basecamp and Screendragon divide.
Yep. Okay, so what you're looking at here is the actual, and this is one of our demo sites here. This is the live version of the site that those screenshots were taken from, and one of the things you're probably all familiar with in Basecamp is, you know, you log in, you have all of your individual projects, but then you often go to that view to say, I want to see all of my to-dos across all of my projects. We do that as well, but it's in the form of your dashboard here. So that's what it's pulling in here, all of your tasks across all of your projects. But there's a bit more to them in the sense that you can have multiple people assigned to them, and they can also have different statuses. So if you do need to mark something, you know, it's not a case of just ticking it to say I'm done or it's not done. You can update the status to say, yeah, this is in progress, this is where we're at, relating to those tasks. And we also handle approval slightly different in the system, in the sense that we've dedicated workflows. So it's not necessarily a task for someone to do, but it's what we call an action, and it all displays at this top level. So one of the big things I was talking about, you know, one of the things we see with teams who are struggling with Basecamp is that when it's trying to manage a lot of projects within the system, especially if you're sort of in maybe a more senior role where you kind of have oversight across a lot of projects, just having them all in that alphabetic list, stuff can get lost in there really easy. So this is the Screendragon project portfolio, and the view you're looking at the moment, I didn't show it a second ago, but this is really the more Excel-like view. And what it's doing is it's pulling key information from each of those projects to this top level. So this is where we saw, you know, people filling the Basecamp description with loads of information about a project. You can customize this view and say, yes, we need to see who the project lead is, we need to know when it was created, and we need to know what the expected, you know, completion date for it is. And then it isn't the case of, you know, it's a one-size-fits-all view. You might have different teams working in the system who have all different needs about how they need to look at their portfolio of projects, or different people working on teams who need to look at the same projects but in a different way. So you can set up different views here. So a good example, I think if I click on the executive view here, so what the system has done is it's after automatically filtering the list of projects to find ones that only match a specific set of criteria, but then it's also after changing the sort of columns of information that are available. So in this case, the vendor name is more important, the total expenses and the total number of hours that are going to be spent on these projects are what are most important. But then if I just click on these guys here, you can see that actual, you know, progress view I showed you a while ago. So for any project, you can get that sort of top level view as to where things are at within that particular process. And again, what powers all of this and what really keeps everything, you know, organized in the system is the way projects are briefed in to the Screendragon tool. So if I click down here to create a new project, these are our project templates, and this is kind of a manual template selection in a sense, but you could also set this up that, you know, you want the system using whatever logic that you build into it to automatically pick the template for the person. So you can see here we've different templates for whether it's a digital or a creative project. So if I say this is a creative project, the system is going to pop up the form that it wants me to fill out with the information that the team need to actually work on a creative project. So you can see here it's the same form you saw a second ago, except this time it's a little bit more interactive. And each one of these, let's say, each one of these fields has been set up to collect information in a certain way. So in this case, it's a drop-down with a predefined list of values. So I can say, yes, this is a print project we're working on at the moment. And then there's all different sort of other input methods to capture whether it's key dates or checkboxes here to capture all the different deliverables for this project. And when I click this submit button, all of this information obviously gets stored in the system, but this is going to determine what you know, what the system is going to pull in when it comes to the project template that's going to be used. So the tasks that I need, the timeline for the project, the team members who need to work on it, and in the background it could automatically be notifying different people that the project has been kicked off, and even as well, if needed to, this particular set of information I put in could go on an approval or could go through an approval process. So my project request might have to be approved before the project is deemed to be activated or started. So let me just go back here. I want to actually open up one of these projects to show you what it does look like inside it. So again, this is the view you saw a second ago in the screenshots. The big difference here is that everything in a Screendragon project is more organized. It's a more structured approach to managing all the content within a project. Now you still have all the same features available to you in the sense of, you can see if I scroll down here, I kind of have a feed of everything going on in the project. There's discussions happening here. People are able to reply to them. People are able to, reply to from their inbox, and it'll all get threaded in here. But it's more, you can spot the real differences when you start looking at things like tasks and files within the system, because they are organized by these big key stage gates. So you can see within the program development phase here are the files relating to that, and these particular files as well, you can see they're actually going through approval processes at the moment, or this one has gone through one. So this is saying it's approved, the workflow has been complete, and if I click on that, it'll actually show me that audit trail. So who uploaded this file, who sent it for approval, what was the reason for requesting that approval, and then what was the outcome of the approval there. And when those files are uploaded and they are sent on that approval process, you define what that process can look like. So you can see if I click on this button here, because this file has been sent to me for approval, I can say approve, reject, or request revisions. So the system handles, or automatically handles, all of the different outcomes from those options. So if I do request revisions, that will all be handled here within the system itself. And what I'm going to finish up on here is, behind all this, saying it is simple to use from the front end, but how does all this actually get set up? All of the forms, all of the templates. Is there a whole lot of coding that the Screendragon team do for all of our clients? Well, the answer is no. There is a set of admin tools here that certain users have access to that control everything you've seen in the last few minutes. So that list of project templates, if I wanted to add one to it, if I wanted to add a new phase or change a timeline in there, be through the template builder. The form builder here is how we can go in and basically drag and drop to create those project initiation forms. And then for those approval processes, it's the workflow builder that we can use to create and manage each one of those. So it's very, again, it's just very configurable, but it can grow with you, because this set of admin tools is there as new processes are defined and as processes evolved. You have the means to come in and actually update everything in the system so that it can, move with you. Fergus, is there anything you'd like to add, or any other parts of the system you'd
No, I think that's fine there. We've reached 35 minutes, so we got about 10 minutes for questions. There's a couple here that we can use to spend the last 10 minutes. So I think you just answered one coming in from Brian about, he was curious about how you manage it, the solution. So you just showed the admin tools there, because his question was, I see workflows, I see forms, but would I be coming to the vendor, i.e. Screendragon, to ask for changes all the time? So I don't think we need to go into that any further, because I think you just covered it there in terms of the tools. There's another one here from Susan, and that one's about working with clients. So she says they work a lot with clients and bringing them in to work together. what's the difference with Screendragon from a permissions perspective?
Okay. Well, yeah. So within Basecamp, I know one of the great things about it is the fact that you can, you have an account and you're working on a project with a client. You can add that client to it, and then they, automatically can participate in the discussions, and they can have limited access to the files and things like that. Well, the good news is you can do that as well in Screendragon. But what we often find is that those requirements change from client to client, and how we handle that is using a quite robust set of permission setup. So what you can do, for example, if I go in here and edit this project, you can see on the team page here, I can actually choose what level of access each person has within that project. So do I just want them to be able to see everything? Do I want them to be able to see and edit it, or do I want them to have admin privileges? So you've a lot more level of control as to what your client can see within the system, what they can contribute to, because obviously there's a lot more going on here. You might want the client to see everything, but you still want to get share files with them, have them participate in approval processes. So yeah, all that's possible.
Okay, so there's a couple of questions coming in around pricing and SLAs. So we'll come on to those for sure. We'll give you an idea of what it costs. It's fair to say that Screendragon isn't exactly the same price point as Basecamp. It is a different solution, can handle more things, I hope, as you can see. So before I'll answer those after this next one, because it came in before it, and that was a question about the new versions of Basecamp, Dara, and what you think. Just somebody here saying, hey, Basecamp 3 is happening, and where does Screendragon still differentiate from that?
Okay. Yeah, well, you mentioned at the start of the call, Fergus, that Basecamp has been around for quite a few years, and it's interesting to think that they're only on version 3 at the moment, but it's really because they're not just adding features in for the sake of adding features in. So everything new they're bringing in is all quite nice, but I would say with some of it they're kind of behind the curve in the sense of things like app mentions, being able to change names within the system, all things which most of our clients would ask us to do on a daily basis. For example, not everybody calls projects. It could be campaigns, and having the word projects up there can really throw their team if they've been working that way for quite a while. So again, it's just another admin tool for us that someone with that level of access can go in there and change the names of all of these. But yeah, there definitely is some interesting features in there, but I'd say some of them were long overdue.
Okay, so lots more coming in. I'm going to answer some of these very quickly. How many licenses come as standard? The minimum contract is 50 users for that one, and for everybody, if you're interested in pricing, we'll send you the pricing deck. Anybody asking those questions? Another one about SLA. Likewise, we'll send on what our standard SLA and standard pricing is for those of you. Are the headers and checkpoints editable? I assume we're meaning maybe the top, the portfolio view. So whoever asked that question, if they could add extra context, but Darren, maybe talk about the inline editing of data there. I think it's probably that.
Yeah, the project portfolio view here is really powerful, and I think it's what a lot of our clients get a huge amount of value out of, because this is what we sometimes kind of call the Excel killer, because that's what a lot of teams fall back to manage their kind of list of all the projects. So even forgetting about what's going on behind each one of these and all the projects, just having this visibility on everything going on within a project. So when you configure these views, and again there's an admin tool for that, you control what columns to put in here. You can freeze frames. You can see here there's horizontal scrolling, so you can have a huge amount of information appearing on this. So yes, you can control what the labels that appear here are, what columns of information appear, and I'm not too sure if any of these are editable, but okay, this date one is. But if you are someone who's managing projects, you don't even have to open up the project to edit the key information. You can change it at this from this top level. And the great thing about collecting it in this very structured manner, so what I mean by that is that rather than someone just typing in 7th of July is the end date, it's very easy for us to pull a report to say, show me all of the projects we've ongoing at the moment and show me the date they were created and the expected end date. But you can also run sort of mini reports from here by using these filter and sort options to filter the list, and then down here there's an export to Excel button. So a lot of clients would do that on a regular basis. So if they have to give status updates to their clients on where all the projects are at, they might filter by client name, whatever else it might be, and then when they have the information on screen they need to share, they click export, and then they can pop that in an email to them or upload it to a part of the system that they have given the client access to.
There are two builds on that. If you go and change layout, just to talk about the way it changes, I think there's an executive view on the change layout. Just talk those. So this is shows you how you can create different views on data in those project templates. That's one way, and there can be permissions put on that data. But they are called out reports. So there, if you click into reports and you click on, I forget which one has dummy data in it, but I think the project status report down there. This is another way of pulling back, kind of doing data crunching on your projects. So here's an example. We set up the report to pull back status and to pull back by project type, and then you can export this to Excel. So it's if you set up your projects in the right way, you can get really good performance metrics, KPIs. Coming back to the questions, can you link the asset management systems such as Box and Dropbox? Right now in the file management system we can integrate with Box in different ways. We've got an integration with Google Drive if your security people allow for it. Some of this has a lot to do with single sign-on APIs and your security folks and them allowing, let's say, Screendragon to communicate. But just so you know, Screendragon has integrations and done them with PeopleSoft, with J.D. Edwards, with SAP, with Asset Management, Ignite, Box, lots of different providers. So,
just on that, Fergus, a lot of our clients, so when they come to us, they do have some sort of a system they use for sharing files externally or just as a kind of a cloud storage. But that's one of the other things with Screendragon. I think you mentioned it, Fergus, that we do replace a lot of those sort of point solutions, and it's one of the new features that is after coming in Basecamp 3, the ability to take a file and just get a link to it and share it with anyone outside of the system. But you can do that here as well. So if you do have a set of files that you need to get to somebody who doesn't have access to the system, well, all I have to do is click on this external share button, and the system will basically give me a link that opens up that either file or folder to people who don't have access to the system, so they can go there and preview it online and download it from there if needed. So a lot of that functionality is covered in the system.
Okay, so we've reached the 45-minute milestone benchmark. If there's any final questions, send them in fast now. Otherwise, we will thank you for your attendance, your time. Dara, thank you for putting together this deck and this demo. If anybody wants more information, we got your questions around pricing and SLA, so we'll follow up directly with those that inquired on that information. But Dara's now brought up more information here where you can reach out directly to us. So feel free, delighted to advise and consult where we can, and we will, I believe, we'll be sharing this video if you want to review it again, pause it, share it with colleagues. Happy for you to review again. So thanks, Dara. Any final words?
Nope. Thanks everyone for attending, and my email address is on screen there, so if you do have any questions or thoughts, please feel free to get in touch.
Okay, the pricing, more pricing information, yeah, so I got your questions are acknowledged. Those of you sending last minute questions in, we will pass that on, and you'll get it today or early tomorrow. Okay, thanks everybody, we'll end it there.
Thanks everybody.